The value of Japanese yen hit its lowest point in about 34 years. On March 27, the yen-dollar exchange rate soared to 151 yen 97 cents. This is the highest level in about 34 years since July 1990, and the value of the yen has fallen to a level that was called a bubble economy. As the yen continues to fall, despite the Bank of Japan's declaration to move away from negative interest rates, tensions among Japanese authorities are increasing. Japanese authorities have intervened when the yen-dollar exchange rate exceeds 150 yen. Japanese authorities believe that this decline in the value of the yen reflects its speculative nature. At the same time, Japanese authorities also hint at the possibility of market intervention. The position is that all means are not excluded. The yen appears to be rebounding due to these governmental moves. The yen-dollar exchange rate is moving in the low 151 yen range around 9 p.m. on this day. Generally, when the central bank raises the base interest rates, the exchange rate falls. However, although the Bank of Japan raised the base interest rates for the first time in 17 years on March 19th, the value of the yen hit its lowest point in 34 years on the 27th. The reason the Japanese government is concerned about the weakening yen is because Japan's economic structure has changed compared to the past. The reason Japan recently emerged from the swamp of low growth was because it successfully improved its corporate structure and governance structure. When Japan was an export-dependent economy, the government sold the yen, causing the currency to weaken. This is because when dollar-dominated export products prices fall, the competitiveness of export products increases. The reason why the value of the yen is falling even though Japan has raised the interest rates is because the interest rate gap between the United States and Japan has not narrowed. Currently, Japan's base rate interest rate is still low. On March 26, the local time, the yield of the 10-year U.S. government bonds was 4.235%, and the yield on Japanese 10-year government bonds was 0.721%. Although the yield on Japanese long-term government bonds has risen significantly from 0.580% on January 15th, the interest rate on U.S. long-term government bonds has also risen from 3.986% on January 15th. The reason interest rates on long-term U.S. government bonds are rising is because the US economy is still on the rise. There is also a reason that the US fiscal deficit is likely to expand in the future due to the confrontation with China and to wars. As the US fiscal deficit grows, the Treasury's issuance of government bonds increases, and the government bonds yields rise. Government bonds prices fall. Additionally, the Bank of Japan still maintains an easing monetary policy. The Bank of Japan announced that it will suspend the yield curve management YCC policy and direct purchases of exchange-traded funds (ETFs) while raising the base interest rates. However, the Bank of Japan announced that it would continue to purchase long-term government bonds at the level it was purchasing before the abolition of YCC for the time being, of stabilizing the market. The US Federal Reserve's Fed interest rate cuts have become more ambiguous. The so-called prudence theory is re-emerging. They say easing monetary policy may require a cautious approach.